to talk to Bill Maher here in a few minutes. I always like catching up with him. He is doing a show on Saturday night at MGM Northfield Park. Gave away some tickets past couple of weeks. Guardians are off tonight. They ended up taking 2 of 3 this past weekend here at home against the Angels, and they will start up again tomorrow night in Chicago. Guarantee Rate Field, 8:10 is the first pitch. That is Central Time there, so 8:10 here.
What was that?
All of our boom arms are...
Poof?
No, when you move them, though, they're not whisper quiet like they. I mean, we've only been here less than a year, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get here. Let me do mine.
Ugh.
Got to get some oil can. Got to get some WD-40 in here or something. Yeah. So, Guardians White Sox tomorrow night, 8:10 here on MMS. It'll be Tuesday. It'll be only Tuesday. Today's Monday, and it already feels like it's going to be a long week. Yeah. I don't know why.
But
I don't know why. What?
But we got a short week, though.
Well, yeah, I'm out Friday, but I mean, it's that. Nevertheless, it just feels like, and I don't know why. Today's the first. Mary's back.
I'm back. That's why it feels like it's going to be long, huh?
Well, you've been
You
traveling.
really make each segment seem so much longer.
No, but you've been traveling, so you probably feel like it's. When did you get back?
Yesterday, late afternoon.
Okay,
I drove home from Jersey. So I was in.
Oh, you drove?
Yeah, well, because I had a string of shows leading up to my week in New York City. So I was in Pittsburgh and then Buffalo and then New York City for a week and then in Jersey. New York City was amazing.
What? I haven't heard much about it. You should get the word out on New York City.
I'm going to start telling people.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I might make shirts that say, I enjoy NY. You think that'll catch on?
I'll even do you one better.
What?
You should start spreading that news.
Where?
Everywhere you possibly can.
But yeah, it was great. I got to perform at the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
That's in a basement, right?
Well, they have 4 rooms. So the original one is in the basement. Only paid regulars can perform in that one. And then they have 3 other rooms that are all like in the same building.
I thought you had done the Cellar before.
I have never done the Cellar before. No, I have gone and watched shows there, but I had never performed there. So I got to actually do a set it's called the Fat Black Pussycat is like one of their rooms. I know.
Right.
And I was in there and it went incredible. It was this week, my shows were amazing. I was really well received. I got to do some big time podcasts while I was out there. And so like Wednesday night, I'm on this high. I'm like, dude, I just performed at the Cellar. I knocked it out of the park. The manager came up to me and was like, you're so funny. Please hit me up next time you're in town. Like I am like riding a wave, right?
And this is which night?
Wednesday.
So midweek.
Thursday, I emailed the club, Bananas in Jersey, and I was like, hey, can I get my hotel confirmation? And they didn't get back to me Thursday. I was like, that's not a good sign. And then Friday, the day I'm supposed to be going is like, hey, still don't have information. And they're like, oh, we accidentally double booked. So if you want to, you can host the weekend instead of feature.
Yeah.
So in a matter of 24 hours, I went from I'm the best comic in the world, I'm killing it, I'm at the Comedy Cellar in New York, to would you like to host for a puppet in a hotel conference room in Jersey?
Right across the river.
Yeah.
That's how quickly fortunes can change. Yeah, well.
Well, so it was just the bitter ends where I'm like, man, I did not come out here to host a show, do 10 minutes up front, and I did have a little chip on my shoulder.
Wait, why did it end up going that you were the one that had to get moved?
He was bringing his own feature.
Oh.
So they kept his feature and bumped me because I booked directly with the booker of the club.
Right.
But I was like, man, I was at the Cellar, I was living the life, and now I've got a host and it was in literally a hotel conference room, and I'm going into it with this horrible attitude. And
you know how to surf the waves. This has happened to you before.
Yeah. But I just going from the high of a week in New York because I did the Stand in New York. I did New York Comedy Club. This is the first full week I've had of comedy club sets in New York, not where I'm just doing like a showcase in Brooklyn or anything like that.
Somebody's living room.
Yes. So these were like legitimate shows in front of the bookers, and I did well on every single one. It was a great week. But then I get to the comedy club that is legitimately a hotel conference room, and it was amazing. We had so much fun. The puppet is Randy Feltface, who is an incredible comic. Like, I'm watching it, and his fans are sold out almost every single show within 10 tickets. All 4 shows were sold out, and he's an Australian guy. And it's like really well written, super introspective, like smart comedy.
This is a purple puppet the guy's got, right?
Purple puppet. So when you see it and you're like, oh, great, I'm opening for a puppet. But I was like, whoa, dude, like this is legitimately good comedy. Like it was awesome. It's such an incredible weekend. And then
somebody's got to fill that Otto and George vacuum.
Well, that's a different. That's this guy doesn't do ventriloquism. He puppeteers the puppet from under a table.
Right. It is just the puppet
You
performing.
never see the guy?
No.
Does he sit under the table the whole show?
Yes.
So when you walk in, he's just sitting under that table.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'll tell you what. So that's
commitment.
That's a twist. I mean,
Well,
you know.
And that's the thing
That's
is that
taking
you're like,
the art form in a different direction.
And the guy himself, he's like a really shy, like reserved dude off stage. We met and talked and everything. And then I was like, oh, this makes sense. This is just how you express yourself. And he's been a writer comedian for 18 years, and it definitely shows in the act. It is a fantastic performance that he puts on. And the puppet's Australian, so Aussie May got to come out in full effect. Every time we talked, I'm like, don't mock his accent. Don't mock his accent. But the way he said LaGuardia.
I do this bit on this show I'm on. Yeah.
Right. The one thing I held on to is that he does a bit about LaGuardia Airport.
Guardier.
And I
Guardier
couldn't stop
Airport.
saying it. All weekend, I would just be in my hotel room like, LaGuardia Airport. The Delta Sky Lounge at LaGuardia Airport. But it was great. It was such a good week of shows. It was so fun.
Well, good.
Yes.
The ups, the downs.
Oh, showbiz.
Oh,
Showbiz indeed.
showbiz. The triumphs, the tragedies, the all of it. All right, well.
Yeah.
That sounds like a guy who maybe would be doing theaters at some point.
He is.
Yeah.
So, like,
He's having a moment. He did a special last year that did really well on
got,
YouTube.
like millions
and,
of views.
And he's having a moment. He was just in town a couple weeks ago at Hilarities.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Well,
he
so
just like a one night though.
the room that we were in seats about 200. It was like 205. So it would have been 820 tickets to sell it the whole weekend. And I think he sold like 804 or something like that. So, but I guess that's his numbers everywhere are crazy. And he's going home to Australia and doing Australia and New Zealand. And he's got sold out theaters.
So he's probably a rock star over there.
Yeah. He's got sold out theaters all
what
over
a
that
beautiful
part of the
way
country.
to have it so that you are always anonymous.
Yes.
Until you put that puppet up, and then it's like, hey.
Well, like he
I
can
love
live his
that.
life.
Yeah.
Like he can just be a guy and walk around and do his thing. And then the puppet is the star.
Right.
But it's still his writing. It's his
Yeah.
voice. It's his,
it's
ideas.
wonderful. I love it.
Yeah. I was like, it's like that. Who's the Marshmallow who wears the hat, or is that Dead Mouse?
Dead Mouse 5?
Yeah.
They all wear helmets.
So you can't tell who they are.
That's the beauty of life.
Yeah.
That should be what everyone aspires to in showbiz, is the puppet is the star, right? Just walk around with a helmet, don't know who they are. Worked for Daft Punk, worked for Marshmallow, worked for Dead Mouse 5.
I could see it happening for our friend Zachariah at some point.
Sure.
Sticky T making it to that level.
Yeah. Just put a helmet on, and I want to talk to Bill Maher about that. Listen, every time I get to talk to Bill Maher, we don't usually talk about helmets on comics or musicians, but it was invariably going to happen, Bill.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I was listening to the end of that, and I can't say I'm on board with the helmet theory.
You don't think so? Like in an alternate universe, if a young Bill Maher had come out and his stand-up twist was that he performed under remember the Unknown comic?
Yes, I do very much
Yeah.
with the bag on his head.
Right. You could have shifted that to a helmet, and people would have stroked their chins and said, oh, this guy's got an interesting take on the Unknown comic.
I feel like this obviates the entire point of getting into show business, which is to be recognized,
Yes.
to be adored, to walk into a restaurant and have them say, oh, look who's here. We have a table for you. To sit courtside at a basketball game and have the camera on you. People in show business are egomaniacs, for God's sakes. This is why they're doing this.
But it's also, when you'll talk to, I've talked to a lot of musicians over the course of my career and various people, and there are some musicians who will tell you, I got into it for the art. And of course,
They're lying.
you roll your eyes, but I'll tell you what, that's why the guys who do it in helmets, you go, well, listen, they're kind of walking the walk, man. Daft Punk, nobody knew who those guys were outside family and friends until a couple of years ago. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because what happens is that, especially in music, it can become so outrageous, the fame, that it's actually a detriment. I mean, obviously, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, there are good parts of fame and there are bad parts. I always thought I had a great level of it because I'm not Michael Jackson in 1985. It's not like the paparazzi are parked outside my house.
Right.
I can walk outside or walk anywhere, and there's not a riot that forms, and never has been and never will be. And yet, there's enough so that, I can get that good table in the restaurant and that kind of stuff. And, if I go to the doctor, I always love it when he says, I'm a big fan. It's like, oh, good, because, when a guy's got your balls in his hand, you don't want someone who's a little iffy on your politics.
Yeah, right. He's squeezing a little too hard.
The other night when you said this, I didn't really.
I didn't care for that at all.
Right.
Speaking of which, Bill, again, if you pardon the pun, I hate to beat a dead horse because I did mention this before, but how are you celebrating National Masturbation Month?
National Masturbation Month is not a month around my house. It's an all-year-round celebration.
Oh, I love it, yeah.
I didn't even know there was such a thing as National Masturbation Month, but, I would say that it's funny when I read about a lot of the stuff that goes on sexually with Gen Z, I guess, younger millennials, and they seem to have a lot more trouble relating, possibly because they grew up with the phone, and so everything happens on screen. So, just going up to a girl is considered somewhat, suspicious now, as opposed to my era where that's what you had to do. And then I read about incels, about incels, meaning involuntarily celibate, which is so interesting that they came up with that term. I remember when I was an incel, we didn't have a term for it. It was just, I can't get laid.
We were all involuntarily celibate.
Exactly. And the last thing I wanted to do was join up with a bunch of other losers who couldn't get laid and start having websites and chat rooms and other kind of nonsense to make it. I was trying to keep it quiet. But this idea that guys are so hooked on porn now, a lot of younger guys, that they don't even try. And I feel like this is a giant difference in my generation with theirs. Like masturbation, I was always so thankful to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I'm joking, of course. That masturbation was something that lived here on this earth, and I could enjoy it. But I never for a second thought it was superior to the real thing. I never for a second thought, I can just live on masturbation. It was a holdover until I could get the real thing, and the real thing was and still is always better. It's just it's great that masturbation exists because you can't always.
Yeah, you can't spend your life pre-gaming the whole time,
Right.
Sooner or later.
That's right.
You've got to get in there and play, and there's a whole lot of different things to contend with than there used to be. Bill Maher is going to be doing the MGM Northfield Park this Saturday night. It is amazing to me, and congratulations, that it's been 20 years on Real Time this past February. Not you weren't even in the wilderness for a year back then. But it's amazing to me that it's been on HBO for 20 years now.
Yeah, that is quite a run. Yeah, and Politically Incorrect was almost 10 years before that. So it's amazing I'm only 42 now, considering that history.
Bravo! I'll tell you what, he has made the most. You can always make more money. You can never make more time, Bill. So you've really, good for you.
Believe me, I know that.
Do you remember because you had a bunch of them in the early days of Real Time, you really stacked, now you have a panel and a guest and whatever. But that first couple of years, you had a lot of guests on each episode. Do you remember one of your first episode guests?
I remember that the very first season, this is typical of shows that they are finding their footing in that first season and very often do something that when you look back, makes absolutely no sense. It's not uncommon in Hollywood, for example, to shoot the pilot of a sitcom. I shot one. I did a pilot in the 80s called Sarah, which wound up starring Gina Davis. But we shot the pilot with somebody else in the titular role of Sarah, and then they looked at it and they went, "Oh, that's not Sarah." It is the title. We shot the whole thing over again with a new Sarah.
They just couldn't get Judy Landers to work for what they wanted her to work for. Yeah,
not quite. My version of that was the first at least, I don't know if it was the whole year, but it was certainly the first season of Real Time. Instead of doing the end of the show, as I have done for the other 19 years, where I do a long monologue at the end, which I spend all week working on, and it's what the audience wants, and it's like the highlight of the show because it's the end. Stupidly, I thought I was Ed Sullivan or something, and I brought on like, "Hey, I'm going to show you bring a new comic," or somebody who's coming up through the ranks. And I remember Sarah Silverman. This is 20 years ago, was just sort of emerging as a comedic star at the time. And Craig Robinson did one. I can't remember all the people, but that's how I ended the show. And it was dumb. That's not what the audience was looking for, and it's not what I should have been doing. But, you learn.
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier in this show about Lil Wayne cutting his L.A. show short there a couple nights ago because middle of his show, he brings out a couple of, young guns from his record label, and the audience is like, "The hell is this?" And I guess he wasn't pleased at how little reaction they were getting. And so it really is about kind of balancing that lineup. And
well, it's also about, especially when people are paying good, hard money to go see you, and they get a babysitter, and they come out, and it's a whole big night, and they've been looking forward to it. You better do exactly what they want you to do. They are the boss, Play the hits. Don't screw around. Don't experiment. Don't bring out young guns from your label who they don't know and they don't want to see. They want to see you do what you do, and if you're a musician, if they're a certain age, they want to hear the thing that they heard the first time they got laid that has so much meaning in their life. That's what they want.
Yeah.
So when they come out of the house to see you, give them what they want.
They want Lil Wayne to play night moves.
Well, like I would know what Lil Wayne is playing, but I always like Lil Wayne. There's a guy who, whenever he's interviewed, boy, he keeps it real.
Yeah, always. Are you preempted, by the way, because of the writer's strike?
Yeah, we were supposed to do a show this last Friday and the Friday before, so we've missed 2 weeks already. God knows when it'll end. We hope at some point we can go back and do a version of the show without writers. I'm not going to cross them on that, but my staff is not getting paid. No one's getting paid. No one's working. I feel terrible for not only those people, but all the other people who, it's a snowball effect. What about the restaurant near the studio? No one's at the studio now, so no one's eating there. And then there's the guy who sells the potatoes to the restaurant. He's going to suffer. And, last time this strike cost the city over $2 billion, and we just got over the pandemic.
Lasted for 4 months last time around, I think.
Oh, my God. And they say it's going to happen again.
Well, listen, it's only a matter of time until AI can replicate sexy indifference, and then we're both out of work, Bill. So...
Well, that's one of the big, that's funny, but, that's one of the big issues in the strike is that the writers are demanding that the studios do not use AI.
Yeah.
And, of course, but it's so ironic because who's going to wind up using AI behind closed doors? The writers.
The writers.
Because, if you're starting to, do a show about a talking aardvark in Alaska, who's a staunch Republican, you can just type that into AI and say, you know what, give me 10 ideas for storylines, and it'll do it in 2 seconds. And then, of course, you can tweak that. But, of course, writers are going to be leaning on AI in the future. There's just no doubt about that. But they want to be – they don't want AI to take away the pay check.
Right. Listen, man, if you are subtly pushing with that Aardvark in Alaska thing for a Bill Maher, Gina Davis reunion –
Aardvark 15.
I am all for it.
I'd do it, but I don't know if Gina's up for it.
All right, well, she's an Olympic archer now. She's probably got different things.
Yeah, she is, and an Oscar winner.
Yeah, indeed. Bill Maher is at MGM Northfield Park this Saturday night. If there are any tickets remaining, you can go to Ticketmaster.com for all the details. And I appreciate your time, Bill. I always like talking to you. Thank you, pal.
Me too, Alan. I appreciate it. Nice to hear your voice again.
Take
See
care,
you soon.
pal. All right.
Okay.
There's Bill Maher. Club Random, by the way, is the podcast. I didn't get to it, but very funny. I think David Spade, he's sitting there with this week.
Just a couple comedic juggernauts down there in Northfield this weekend. I'll be there at Spinato's. And
Bill Squire, right across the street from Bill Maher.
I don't know if Bill Maher's also at Spinato's.
He's at MGM at Northfield Park.
Is there a Spinato's in there?
I don't think so. No, I think he's over by the casinos and you're over at Spinato's. He's over Spinato.
Yeah.
That's where you'll find Bill Squire.
Let's call the whole thing off.
I've got to take a break here. If you want to send a text